Shivam sarvatra pashyami, Shivam sarvatra bhavaye, Shivoham nityameva syat, Shive rame mano mama. In the sacred tradition of Shaiva Bhakti, the Nayanars stand as luminous beacons of love and surrender. They were not saints by birth or scholars by training, but ordinary souls whose extraordinary devotion transformed their lives into living scriptures of grace. Through them, we glimpse the essence of devotion, not as ritual or knowledge, but as the complete offering of oneself to the divine. Each Nayanar's path was unique. Some worshipped through service, others through sacrifice, some through discipline, others through wild abandon. Yet all shared a single truth, that Lord Śiva dwells not in distant heavens, but in the heart that loves him with purity and courage. Among these radiant devotees, two lives stand as twin flames of devotion. Enadinatha and Nayanar, the swordsman who chose surrender over victory, and Kannappa Nayanar, the hunter who gave his very eyes in love. Though their expressions differ, one measured and reverent, the other raw and impulsive, their souls burn with the same truth, that when love for God eclipses the self, even death becomes divine. In the fertile lands of India, along the sacred banks of the Arisol River, lived Enadinatha and Nayanar, a humble yet fiercely devoted servant of Lord Śiva. Born into the Shanar community, he was a skilled swordsman and a respected fencing tutor to princes. Though his art brought him fame and fortune, his truest wealth lay in his unwavering devotion to the Lord and his devotees. For Enadinatha and Nayanar, the three white lines of sacred ash, the vibhuti, painted on the foreheads of Lord Shiva's devotees, were no mere symbols. They were living reminders of the Lord's teaching to burn away ego, desire, and illusion, to transcend the bonds of the world, and to seek liberation through surrender. To him, anyone bearing those holy marks was none other than Lord Śiva himself in human form, worthy of his reverence even above his own life. But envy crept in the heart of a neighbor, a man lacking both virtue and skill, yet hungry for recognition. Hoping to prove himself, he challenged Enadinatha and Nayanar to battle. The clash was fierce. Friends and kin joined on both sides, and many perished before the neighbor fled, burning with humiliation. The next day, he sought revenge through deceit. He invited Enadinatha and Nayanar to a private duel, one-on-one. The noble swordsman agreed, ready to face his foe in honor. Yet, when the neighbor stepped forward, bearing the sacred ash on his forehead, marking himself as a Shiv devotee, Enadinatha's heart faltered. His sword refused to strike. Bound by devotion, he laid down his weapon. In that moment of pure surrender, the neighbor seized his chance and struck him down. But death could not defeat Enadinatha. His act of compassion was the highest victory, for when his body fell, Lord Śiva himself appeared, receiving his devotee into eternal grace. Enadinatha and Nayanar's life teaches that true strength lies not in conquering others, but in conquering the self. The sacred ash, a simple mark of ash, became for him the line between violence and surrender, between pride and devotion. His sacrifice reminds that reverence for the divine spark in others is the truest worship of God, To honor the sacred in every being is to live in the constant awareness of the divine. In a world often driven by conflict and ego, Enadinatha and Nayanar's courage of surrender calls us to a higher heroism, the heroism of compassion, restraint, and faith. If Enadinatha embodies devotion through discipline, Kannappa Nayanar embodies devotion through abandon. One laid down his sword, the other his own eyes, but both conquered the self and reached the same eternal light. In the wild forest in India lived the king of hunters and his wife, whose long-awaited son was named Tinnanar. Though born into a life of a hunt, Tinnanar's heart was a reborn soul destined once more to seek Lord Śiva in the simplest, most heartfelt way. Skilled with the bow and arrow, yet gentle in nature, Tinnanar hunted only for need and spared the weak. He had already mastered the beast within, the lust, the anger and greed and pride. His true journey began when an unseen force drew him into the sacred hill of Kalahasti, a place in India where Lord Śiva dwelt as a silent ling. Overcome with devotion, the hunter worshipped in his own rustic way. Lacking the learning of priest, he poured water from his mouth as Abhishek, placed flowers he had worn upon his head, and offered the choicest meat from his hunt. To him, these were tokens of love, not impurity. He stood guard day and night, protecting his Lord as a loyal sentinel. The temple priest saw this with horror and believed that the shrine was desecrated. But Lord Śiva, ever compassionate, wished to reveal the truth. The devotion's worth lies not in ritual, but in the heart's purity. To test his devotee, the Lord caused one of his eyes on the ling to bleed. Seeing it, Tinnanar rushed forward in anguish. With a single arrow, he plucked out his own eye and pressed it onto the wounded one. When the other eye began to bleed, he prepared to offer that too, placing his foot upon the ling to guide his aim, determined that his Lord should not remain in pain, even if he himself were left blind. At that moment of supreme love and surrender, Lord Śiva revealed himself, stopping the sacrifice. He restored Tinnanar, Kannappa Nayanar's sight, embraced him, and took him into eternal union, proclaiming him forever as Kannappa Nayanar, the devotee who saw with the eyes of the soul. Kannappa Nayanar's story shows that the divine seeks not the perfection of ritual, but the perfection of love. His offering of his eyes symbolizes the surrender of all personal vision, of ego, judgment, and attachment to behold God as he truly is. The wild boar he hunted was the symbol of his ego, the inner darkness slain before illumination. His life teaches that devotion is not about learning or lineage, but about the courage to love without hesitation, even to the point of losing oneself. From cities to cities, these two lives reveal the infinite faces of devotion. Enadinatha and Nayanar's reverence and Kannappa Nayanar's abandon are not opposites, they are complements, two expressions of the same truth, that when the heart is surrendered, all actions become worship. Enadinatha and Nayanar saw the Lord in sacred ash and laid down his sword. Kannappa Nayanar saw the Lord in pain and gave his own eyes. Though restrained and through sacrifice, they teach that to surrender is to conquer. and to love is to see God everywhere. The lives of both these Nayanars remind us that devotion is not the privilege of the learned, but the birthright of every soul that loves without measure. One offered peace in the face of violence, the other offered sight in the face of blindness. In both, Lord Śiva revealed that the highest form of worship is compassion itself. The truest temple is not made of stone, it is built in the heart that beats with faith. The holiest ritual is not recited from scripture, it is lived through love, humility, and surrender. In a world where pride often masquerades as strength, their stories whisper a gentler truth, that the mightiest act is to bow, the greatest offering is oneself, and the purest vision is to see the divine in all. May the courage of both the Nayanars and the love of both the Nayanars awaken in us the same flame of devotion, a love so vast that it dissolves every boundary, a surrender so complete that even loss becomes liberation. For in the end, all paths of devotion lead to one realization. When we love without self, we become one with Lord Śiva himself. Bhava bhavanaya bhaktya, bhaktam hi bhavatam Shiva, tvam hi bhaktya priyo deva, Enadinatha namostate. May Jagatpita Mahadev bless us all. Keep seeking, keep chanting, keep surrendering. Om Namah Shivaya.